Good morning, everyone, and happy Monday. We are back. And we're seeing some pretty crazy news in this market. Twitter stock is exploding this morning off of news that Elon Musk bought into Twitter, and this is just a couple weeks after he had some pretty tough things to say about it. But either way, Twitter stock is booming to the upside, and I know, Tom, even Elon kind of hinted at starting his own social media platform a little bit in the past.
Yeah, like last week we actually saw some articles where he was hinting at that, and we were kind of thinking it might make Facebook and some of these stocks like Twitter end up moving to the downside. But the fact that Elon's getting into Twitter here is huge, Mike. You can see, obviously, it's big for the shareholders. The stock price is up 23% this morning. I actually have the article right here. I think he's the biggest stakeholder in the company, isn't he? I think he just passed up the old CEO. What was his name,
Jack
Mike?
Dorsey.
Jack Dorsey. I think Dorsey owns like 2% or something like that of Twitter. Elon Musk now owns like 9.2% of apparently a passive stake in the company, but still, that's crazy. The stake is worth $2.89 billion based on Twitter's price on Friday, it says. So that's huge, Mike, and obviously it's big for the stock. We're up 25%, and anytime Elon does anything, of course, it's just huge. So hopefully this helps Twitter keep booming back to the upside. I know we've been waiting for a long time, Mike, for Twitter and some of these stocks to recover, but look at the gap we just created. I mean, this is crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy. 25% in a day. You know I have to check out these options really quickly. So let's see. The weekly options chain on Twitter. Oh my God. So, Tom, some of these options are up 13,000% from Friday's close. I'm looking at the 50 strike call options. On Friday, these call options were going for like either $1 or $2 each. Right now, they're trading for like $250 to $270 each.
Oh my gosh, Mike, that is insane. 13,000%. It's been a while since we've seen options go up that much. Lately we've been seeing some, maybe some 2,000, 3,000 percenters here and there with the earnings and stuff. But wow, I mean, this was a big move, Mike. And I think this was also pretty unexpected, and on Friday, there wasn't much movement with Twitter going on. There wasn't a lot of hype last week with these. So I think they did a good job with keeping this one under the radar, Mike, and it was nice to see that Twitter's flying up like this. I'm curious if there were any big orders coming into Twitter options on Friday or something, Mike, because it'd be very interesting to see some maybe some insider knowledge there or some big trades going on.
True. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, that would be that would not be right, but yeah, I'm very curious. But yeah, Tom, looking at just the market overall today, it looks like it's a pretty decent day. Of course, we have Twitter up a good amount, but even some of these China stocks are moving in some pretty nice ways.
Yeah, I saw this morning Baidu, and a lot of them were gapping up. Looks like they are starting to fall back over here at market open, but I'm glad to see them gapped up. It seems like we see them have these gaps all the time because of the way the foreign markets move, but yeah, I mean, it's good to see them up here. I know I was really looking this morning, Mike, at some of the China EV companies like NIO, LI, and then XPEV, and they're also kind of pulling back today. I will say NIO was kind of my favorite one to look at, but it's just not really doing too much right now. It is kind of holding up here at this support around 22.75 though, so that's good to see at least. But they are kind of pulling back here at open, so we'll have to see if these can kind of keep up with that momentum we saw in pre-market or not.
Yeah, and Draftkings is even having a decent day. It's almost up 3.5%, and that's a pretty good open.
Yeah, this one's really good, Mike. Up, like you said, 3.5%. We're almost back up to $20 now, which is nice. I know that last week we fell back below 20, especially on Thursday and Friday. We started dipping under there a little bit, so I'm glad to see us coming back today. Looks like we also have some companies like Square doing quite well, along with some of these other, I could call them growth plays like RUN. Looks like we have AI doing pretty well, along with Snapchat. Snapchat's probably following Twitter up here today, so I'm glad to see these stocks running.
Yeah, there we go. Alrighty, so I'm just doing a quick scan to see some of the stocks we have moving this morning. But yeah, Tom, even the market itself, it's holding up in a decent way. Obviously, it's not running up the best right now, but It's kind of just like bouncing back and forth between like 452 and like 454. I feel like it's channeling between those two levels, and it has been channeling between those two levels kind of over like the past day and a half, but I don't know. What are you thinking?
Yeah, if you count pre-market, that channel has definitely been holding up. Even with after hours on Friday, we were kind of bouncing around there. So I definitely like this channel between 452 and 454, like you said. If we do end up falling below 452 today, I might look at the SPY kind of to the downside, Mike, because I know last week we were having some pretty big moves on Wednesday and Thursday to the downside. Even Friday, before we recovered at the end of the day, the SPY took a bit of a tumble. So I'll definitely keep it on the radar because we have been seeing, the market pulling back a little bit. And I feel like the Russia news just isn't getting any better, Mike. Like, I'm just waiting to see finally some good news come out of Russia, maybe some talks or something like that. And now apparently we've been seeing just increased like ramping up of what they're doing. They've obviously been like shelling more cities and stuff like that, and it just hasn't been helping the market. So I really hope the SPY ends up going up. And obviously, Mike, one of the bigger things is the NASDAQ. I really hope the QQQ keeps going up. And I will say, so far this morning, the NASDAQ is outperforming the SPY a little bit.
Interesting. So yeah, like looking at some of these biggest moving plays in the NASDAQ, what's really driving it up is like PDD, that's up a lot. Baidu's up a lot. NTES is up a lot. Also, we have Team up a decent amount too. Those are like the leaders for the NASDAQ right now. And then on the downside, though, we have some of these bigger weighted or heavier weighted stocks like Nvidia and Qualcomm kind of dragging it just a little bit to the downside. But Nvidia's it was red for a second.
Yeah, it was. Now, of course, it's back into the green here. But yeah, it's crazy to see Nvidia down like this, Mike. And I know that lately these chip stocks have been really like falling off the table. Like, let's look at Nvidia on the daily chart here. Of course, it's just been pulling back because we've been flying to the upside in a major way. But, last week we had like 4 red days in a row. And I'm a little bit worried that we might see a continuation back to the downside. Now, I will say, Mike, like we have been falling, like I said, for like 4 days in a row. So I could see a bit of a pullback happen here. But whenever I look at it on the daily chart and in like a bigger picture here, we can kind of see that we're still up a lot compared to a couple months ago. So I'm curious if we're still going to see some pullbacks here on some of these, like, I guess you could still call them overbought stocks, at least over the past couple months.
Yeah. Alrighty. And then we're also just seeing some really good movement out of these big tech stocks like Apple, Microsoft, PayPal, Facebook. Like, they are performing pretty well today. I was specifically looking at Facebook. I just really like it at this level, but they're all doing pretty good.
Yeah, they are. Like once you started mentioning Apple, I was pretty happy to see that. This is actually some pretty nice movement today, and it's honestly recovered up in a major way. So hopefully we see the SPY start to follow along with some of these stocks, Mike, because, like I mentioned, the NASDAQ was doing quite well this morning. Look at it now. It's even extending up towards 364. Hopefully the SPY is going green, but it's still kind of just tumbling over here. So we'll have to see what ends up happening with it. But yeah, you're right. A lot of these bigger tech plays are looking good. Twitter's still doing pretty good this morning, Mike. We're still at 21%. I'm glad the pullback hasn't been too big yet, but like you mentioned, Apple and Microsoft are having a really good day. Apple's still going. Looks like Microsoft is also still moving to the upside. I will say I'm also seeing some of these oil plays, Mike, at least crude oil itself here. Let's see /CL. It's definitely back on the uptrend so far this morning, and it's up another 4%. But I will say, though, we're only at $103. What were we at, like 130 a few weeks ago? Yeah, 130 at the high.
True. All right, Tom, let's shift topics for 1 second. We have to look at Draftkings. So it's up almost 6% today, and I just saw that news came out about an hour ago saying that Draftkings enters deal with the Mashantucket Tribal Nation to offer sports betting in Puerto Rico. They will offer online and retail sports betting in Puerto Rico at the Foxwoods El San Juan Casino, and it's reported that they will open in the coming week. So I think that's pretty cool news, and it's pretty awesome. Draftkings is constantly on offense, and the stock just does nothing but fall over the past couple of months, but I really do love this one for the long term.
Yeah, me too. And they're just still continuing to put themselves out there, Mike. And then they're just getting more deals done. You know, they've been making deals with other companies, and I'm glad to see them get in with. I don't want to, I will say I don't even know what should I call this company, Mike. I guess I'll just call them Foxwood Resorts. But I guess it's good to see them getting another deal here. I know that city, San Juan, Mike, in Puerto Rico is pretty big. So I know it's a huge tourist attraction and stuff like that. I know my family's been there a few times and stuff. So definitely is a big area there. So hopefully they make some good revenue from this, but it's just good to see them continuing to grow. You know, they're going to keep making deals with other countries like that or other companies. And then also, of course, Mike, we can't forget that the potential deal between like Draftkings and possibly ESPN or Disney pretty soon. That'll be a pretty big one if that ends up getting announced. And I know ESPN is just like, they're just kind of like waiting, I think, to get into the sports betting game. But, you know, once a couple more states legalize, it's going to be huge.
Yeah, we'll see. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, they've just been expanding all across the U.S. and the territories, obviously. Like, I was not expecting DraftKings to get into Puerto Rico, you know, so that's, it's cool, you know. I mean, I'm definitely not going to complain about it. So, great stuff there.
Puerto Rico is U.S. owned, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah, it is for sure. But yeah, I just think it's really cool. You know, I feel like every time I pull up the DraftKings news article, they're always making some deal or doing something. But yeah, like looking at the stock more, obviously it's nice that over the past like month or so, it's been consolidating, so it hasn't really been falling too much. It's actually been on a pretty good uptrend over the past couple weeks, but then again, like all stocks have been. But it looks like we're kind of basing off around this $20 level. Obviously, it has a lot more work to do to get back to its previous levels. But hey, you know, when I feel like when we have more news come out over time, and as the market kind of calms down a little bit, and maybe as people start to realize the price DraftKings is trading at, then I think we'll be good overall for the long term. You know, I feel like they're such an explosive company, and I think they'll be good.
Yeah, and we've been going down for a while, so hopefully even in the shorter term we start coming back up. You know, I think that this uptrend and the way we've been consolidating is showing that the stock definitely has some buyers coming in down here, and there is some strength, I think. So that's good. I really hope that we see some nice momentum here. I personally like this setup a lot, Mike. You know, it looks like the stock is starting to kind of staircase itself back to the upside. I know we see these types of setups happen sometimes when we go back on some nice bull runs. So I hope that we just see a nice breakout here, maybe up above like 2150, which was like the high of last week. If we could break that, then I think we'll be pretty good.
All right, good stuff. We have Dang saying watching Roblox this morning. Let's take a good look at Roblox. It's looking pretty good, Tom. I haven't even watched this one this morning, but it's a pretty nice uptrend.
Yeah, it's another good one. I've been eyeing up these metaverse plays, Mike, for a while, and this morning we're having some great moves out of Roblox and also Unity. Those two stocks are just exploding today at open. Unity's approaching that high of last week. They're up 6%, but going back to Roblox, they're looking explosive. And, you know, whenever we look on the daily chart, it's kind of like DraftKings. You know, they're still down a lot, but they are starting to go back on that uptrend, which is nice. And I will say Roblox on the daily chart, Mike, they have a big gap to fill here between like $60 and like 65, 66 maybe. So that's going to be big if they end up going up and start to fill that gap. I think that'll be huge for their stock. And, you know, I really think that this one, Mike, is going to be a pretty nice recovery play. I know that there's some bigger players. Like I think Pelosi's in this one, and well, she was anyways, last I heard, but I know that those reports are always changing, but there's some big players in here, and you know they're getting into the metaverse, and they've had some deals with some big companies too, like the NFL, and I also believe the NBA.
Oh yeah, what was the other one, Tom? Nike too, Nike Land.
Yeah, Nike Land. That's right.
Yeah, so that's cool. Yeah, I mean overall it's a pretty good day, especially with these growth stocks. Roblox blasting up, DraftKings, Neo still running. Even Square's having a pretty decent day. Let's see. Square's looking pretty good.
Yeah, Square's kind of looking like these other growth plays today. So maybe, you know what? Like I've been saying a lot, Mike, you know, we might start to see a nice sympathy move out of a lot of these plays. Like if we continue to see Square, DraftKings, Unity, and stocks like that in the green, it helps a lot of these other growth plays also come up into the green, kind of like Blink and like Rivian and stocks like that. It looks like they're also starting to push back to the upside today. Let's look at Rivian actually, because I know Friday they were selling off in a pretty bad way, Mike. It was a little bit scary to watch, but so far today they're not really doing anything. They are in the green, but I will say it's definitely not in the green. Like it's not overly hyped or anything like that. But let's go check out Enphase, because I know that's been a pretty big one. And they had another breakout today, Mike. They just continue to fly up here. Let's actually look at Enphase on the daily chart, Mike, because they are honestly almost recovered back up here. It's kind of crazy to say that.
Yeah, true. All right. Well, Tom, what setups are you watching? Like what's catching your eye?
Yeah, kind of like what we're seeing with Enphase here, flying up on the daily chart. I feel like that we're really starting to see a good recovery out of a lot of these stocks. Like we talked about Draftkings, Square, Twitter's starting to come up, Facebook. I really feel like that we're going to start to see more recovery here over the next few weeks. I know the market pulled back last week, which was kind of expected because, we've been just flying up over the past month or so. So we kind of had to expect a pullback last week. But I feel like a lot of these stocks are renewing their uptrend here. Kind of like I said, Facebook, a lot of these bigger stocks are moving. So I'm really liking the breakouts. And what I'm really waiting for, Mike, is a lot of these stocks to break the highs of last week. So as Facebook starts to rise here, it kind of double topped last week around 230 to 231. And we're just now approaching that resistance once again. So we might see a nice breakout there. And like I said, a lot of stocks are approaching those highs of last week. Even Draftkings approaching that high of last week around 21 to 21.26. So maybe we'll start to see some nice moves above those highs. And then we can find maybe some nice momentum plays there.
All right, I'll take it. But another thing I wanted to look at really quickly was AI. This stock has been all over the place over the past year or so. It's up around 5% today. It's one of those growth stocks, but I feel like it doesn't have the same amount of hype that like a Roblox or like Neo or anything like that has.
Yeah, I don't think it does either, unfortunately, but I like the company and I hope it does good. It's in a good sector at least, but I feel you, it definitely just doesn't have that type of hype. But the good news is that it's moving up in sympathy with these other stocks, so that makes me happy. It still hasn't broke above its high of last week either, kind of like how we talked about with DraftKings and stocks like that. So I'm glad that it's setting up the same, but I'm with you. It doesn't have that hype. Maybe they'll have some renewed hype or something like that come out over the next few months. They need some good news or something, because I feel like this company's just been off the radar for a while. And some of the other AI plays, Mike, like I'm trying to think of some of the other AI companies out here, kind of like CrowdStrike maybe. Companies like that seem like they've been doing a lot better, but AI is just kind of lagging behind here.
Yeah, like I know some people like to look at Palantir too, like, AI, Palantir. I know a lot of people like to bring up like Google, Facebook, Apple, Nvidia, stuff like that. But yeah, I feel you though. A lot of stocks have been struggling a lot lately, and even Facebook, like even that one has been really struggling. Like it's crazy to think that just a couple months ago Facebook was at 384, and just a couple weeks ago it was at 185. Like that's a giant swing.
It really is, and you would never expect that out of a stock this big. Like if we saw Tesla, have a big gap down like this on the chart, I think everybody would, obviously it'd be like a huge freak out. I feel like everyone would go crazy, but whenever it happened with Facebook, I guess there was just so much going on at one time. We had Snapchat and Twitter also doing bad. We had we had a lot of issues with Facebook, and they were like going into like a lot of meetings with the government. I remember Zuckerberg was like testifying to like some Senate panels and stuff like that. So there's definitely a lot of weird stuff with Facebook, and I hope that they recover, Mike, because they've been getting into a lot of good things in my opinion. They're always innovating, and the way that they've gotten into the headsets with Oculus Rift, like the VR headsets, that's going to be huge there for them. I know that's going to be big for the metaverse down the line, and they changed their name to Meta. So, they're starting to get into a lot of different stuff, and I feel like that as the metaverse starts to come out, obviously I think they're going to have a bit of a foothold on it. So I'm glad to see that they're innovating, but I will say, their platform is still doing pretty well, Mike. Like everybody I know still uses Facebook and stuff. So I feel like it'll start to recover at some point here. And we have to keep in mind, they also had that bad news with the iOS App Store was kind of hitting them with their ads, and then I know Google started doing something like that as well with like the privacy changes. So that hurt him in the short term, but I feel like longer term, that ad revenue will come back. I think, Mike, because as we know, the internet is just a crazy marketplace. And I just don't think Facebook's going to go anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah, and they have such a dominant position, like they're one of the leaders in terms of like social media, internet. I guess you can now say metaverse potential, like I know the metaverse is still, developing, but they're definitely making some big steps to ensure that they are one of the dominant players. Just like you said, Tom, they straight up changed their entire company name from Facebook to Meta. And then, like you also said, with their Oculus headsets, like, that's giant. So I think they'll be good either way. I've been selling puts and grabbing shares of Facebook, and I don't plan on closing those anytime soon. But yeah, either way, I think it's looking pretty good for the long term. We had Lou mention Tilray, Tom. How's that one doing?
Oh, I know they had some crazy news last week, and oh man, this morning they are pulling back. It looks like they're down 5%. This is not good. I wonder if something happened with the marijuana bill going through Congress. I'm looking on my Thinkorswim news tab here. I actually just pulled it up so everybody can see it. It says the House legalized cannabis, but don't get too excited about pot's Senate prospects. So that's the title of the Barron's article there. But it looks like, as we saw last week, Mike, the House did end up passing that bill to decriminalize marijuana, but it has to still go through the Senate, of course, and then, of course, be signed into action. But there's still a lot of stuff going on, and it looks like Adam Horowitz, a cannabis attorney, said that he personally doesn't expect the Senate to pass it based on their current makeup. So that's not good to see. That's probably why these stocks are going down, which is unfortunate. But yeah, Tilray to the downside, Mike, along with CGC, PLNHF, even the MJ ETF is down today. So we're definitely seeing a big pullback here, as it looks like the Senate won't pass this. But I still think there is some hope. Just because one analyst doesn't expect it doesn't mean it won't happen.
True that. And then plus these MJ stocks are ridiculously volatile. They're some of the most volatile stocks in the market. But yeah, it does suck that it's down 5.5%. Hopefully that momentum gets back to the upside, but clearly it's not looking the best right now.
And if I was a longer term shareholder of Tilray, like let's be honest, like if I was grabbing shares of Tilray anywhere down here at the bottom, I'm not too worried about this pullback. I still think Tilray has a good chance to go up, especially if the bill ends up passing. That would be huge. Plus, Tilray has earnings coming up this week, we can't forget, on Wednesday before the market opens. So that's going to be big for him then, too. So definitely keep that in mind. But I definitely feel like, Mike, like this pullback, if you're in for the longer term, I don't think this pullback's too worrying here. We're still up quite a bit from the low of $4.78. Now, if we do end up falling back to around $4.50 or something, then I'll be a little bit worried, because that would be a crazy drop here, almost a 50% decrease there if we do end up falling that far.
Yeah, it'd be rough. And then we have Alex saying, can you take a look at the value plays like Walmart and Kraft Heinz? So let's see, Walmart, yeah, they're not really moving too much today, which is pretty typical for a value play. Walmart's on an amazing uptrend, or it has been on an amazing uptrend over the past couple of weeks and the past couple months. I was looking at some of the other value plays like KO, like Tom just pulled up, and even Procter & Gamble. Overall, like, they all have been like shifting higher. Let me look at Walmart a little bit more. It's
Looks
just
like Walmart's kind of double topping here at this resistance.
Yeah, or you could even say like a triple top.
Yeah, almost. Yeah, triple, quadruple almost. Like, it's been touching this level around 150 to like 154 a ton up here. I'm really curious if this will maybe finally be the big breakout, Mike, because, it looks like Walmart's been consolidating here. Honestly, it consolidated for over a year around 150. So maybe we'll finally see a nice push up towards like 160 or something like that soon.
Yeah. So we do have big resistance coming up, which is a little bit worrying, but I don't know, Tom. Maybe it's just me, but I also feel like Walmart is I know. I just feel like it's at a point right now where it's like I'm not going to open a new long position, and at the same time, I'm not going to short it. I don't know. Like, what's your opinion?
Yeah, it's tough. Like if you open like a new long position here, even like if you tried to swing it for the next couple of weeks or even for like the next month, I feel like, like it's moving well. We might have a good chance to break out. But with the way we've been touching here and falling over the past, year or so, I feel like that it might not be worth the risk. And at the same time, Walmart's a pretty slow mover. So if it does start ripping, it might be better almost to maybe play like momentum if it starts to break out. Maybe that would be the way to go, but I'm with you. It's a slow mover, and I don't think I would open a long position here and wait because it's going to be tough because we might get rejected again. And looking in the past here, like whenever this has got rejected here, it doesn't just fall slightly down. Like it looks like we've been falling from like 150 all the way back down to like 135 almost every time we touch 150. So definitely keep that in mind if you guys are looking at Walmart. But I will say some of the other value plays, Mike, like I know they mentioned Kraft. I feel like I like this one a little bit better on the daily setup, but just keep in mind, like a lot of these value plays, like we've been talking about, are up quite a bit. So at the same time, we might have to expect a pullback soon.
So what are you seeing for resistance on Kraft?
Yeah, Kraft, let's go back to that one really quick here. So Kraft has been kind of on a pretty good uptrend here the past couple weeks or a couple months actually. So they've been consolidating a lot around like $35, but as they start to rise, there's a pretty big resistance here right around 40, which we kind of touched last week and started falling off of. So $40 to 41 is a pretty big level in my opinion. It looks like if we go to the 5-minute chart, we actually touched 40 in pre-market today and got rejected pretty hard. So honestly, with us touching that resistance and falling like this today, I might say that we might see a bit of a pullback out of Kraft Heinz for the next few days. But as far as the uptrend goes for the next few months, I really like a lot of these plays like Kraft. I think Walmart might do pretty good. Another one I was eyeing up for a while was Clorox. They did drop, but they might still recover up. But I feel like a lot of these plays will do good with inflation going up because a lot of these companies deal with consumer products, obviously. And like Kraft Heinz sells a ton of stuff at the stores, like ketchup, and then like cookie companies. Like they own a lot of companies under them. So keep that in mind. But I feel like with inflation, a lot of these value plays will do a little bit better here.
Yeah, they're definitely in an industry that's like good no matter what the state of the economy is. You know what I mean? Like whether times are amazing or times are tough, it's like people are always going to be buying what Kraft has to sell.
Yeah, and then we have Kraft, and then there's other companies that do it like Nestle. I'm actually going to look up Nestle's stock ticker because they're actually kind of confusing. So it's let's see, Nestle. Is Nestle NSRGY? I think that's that's what came up on Google for me, but it looks like NSRGY, they're on the OTC market, but I know Nestle's another big value stock that they have a lot of products on the shelves as well. I know Clorox, CLX, they own a lot of products also. So a lot of these companies I feel like, Mike, can start to recover up, especially like ones like I said that have products like at the stores. I think that's just going to be a really good sector for the next few months. As we already know, a lot of these prices are already going crazy. I know like the prices of meat lately, Mike, have been through the roof. Like I've been seeing like a lot of steaks at restaurants and stuff go up in pricing. So hopefully we see some of these stocks do better.
Yeah, I mean, when you're looking at companies like Kraft Heinz or Johnson & Johnson or Procter & Gamble or anything like that, it's like that's what kind of like makes them value stocks. Because it's like, yes, they're probably not going to double within the next year, but at the same time, it's like they offer a sense of stability that is really hard to find in other companies because, like I just said, like no matter how the economy is doing, people for the most part are always going to be buying, products from Procter & Gamble, Johnson & Johnson, Kraft Heinz, and a lot of other companies. So, Alex, I'm glad that you brought up these value stocks because it never hurts to, at least own a little bit of them.
Yeah, definitely not. It's definitely a good thing to keep in your portfolio. I will say, if I didn't have Kraft over the past year with Draftkings and all these stocks going down, I would have been pretty upset. So I'm glad to see that Kraft has been holding up a little bit here, but Yeah, I think it's important to always diversify, maybe have a few value plays along with some growth plays. I think that's a pretty good way to go. Another one, Mike, like another good value play is actually Hasbro, like HAS. Looking at HAS, they're actually down quite a bit right now, Mike. And I know they sell like a lot of kids products and stuff like that. Maybe this one will be a pretty good pickup here on the dip soon.
Yeah, maybe. I'd have to look into their fundamentals a little bit more, but it seems like they've been doing decent since COVID, but I don't know if I'd buy that one, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, they're recovering back. I know that this one's been a pretty safe stock, like in the longer term. Like, let's look at like the Max Weekly. You can see it's been pretty good. I know it had that big drop with COVID, but I know that this one also is another one that performs well during times of uncertainty. Like, look at 2008 here. Like this stock, obviously it dipped down a little bit, but look at the quick recovery. Like this one just really recovers quick usually, so that's good to see. But obviously though, Mike, if we go back to the early 2000s, like we always talk about, buying at the right time is very important because even this stock consolidated for like 5 years with that .com bubble crash. So like we always say, Mike, those valuations and those fundamentals are definitely important. So we'll have to eye that one up with Hasbro for sure because like you said, it's definitely a big factor, but you're right. Whenever I look at the daily chart, this one's probably not my favorite. It definitely hasn't been performing like KO or Walmart or anything like that, but it's definitely been taking a big dip though, which is interesting. I know another one, Mike, is Dollar Tree, like DLTR. Wow, look at this one actually. This one's pretty high on the daily. I actually wasn't expecting this.
Yeah. Is this the one that is now the $1.25 tree?
Yeah, $1.25 tree, $1.50 tree. Like,
Yeah.
It's funny what we've been seeing with this one, but yeah, I think they raised their price. Is it $1.25 or $1.50 now? I can't remember, but
Yeah.
I will say that these stocks like Dollar Tree, Dollar General, stocks like that seem to do pretty good. Whenever, like for example, like whenever COVID started going bad, ever since COVID, like this stock has just straight up recovered in a big way, and with all the prices getting higher, I feel like people are going to start shopping maybe at these like lower price stores, kind of like Dollar Tree. So they've definitely been exploding, Mike. But look at this on the daily chart. Like they've had 3 red days now at the top. I will say, if anyone's looking to play this one, be a little careful because in my opinion, we might see a pullback here.
Yeah. Alrighty. And then we have George mentioning Nvidia. So let's see. Nvidia today is up 2.3%. It's having a pretty good day. I know it had a pretty rough end to the week last week, but it's recovering pretty nicely. It looks like there is some support right around 270 and like $267.50. We do have some resistance coming up around 275, but yeah, I mean, it's not looking bad.
It's not. It's definitely on the uptrend today. Now that resistance coming up around 275 is going to be pretty big though. I'm not sure we're going to be able to break above that today, but hey, I'm glad to see it running up like this, and I really hope we continue up this week because, we saw that pullback come into the chip plays last week, Mike, and I'm really hoping to see a nice recovery back up. I know Nvidia was falling last week, AMD was falling down last week, along with even Qualcomm, Intel. Lots of stocks in the chip sector were down pretty big, so I hope we see that whole sector start to come back, and if we do, it looks like today we're seeing a lot of sympathy moves, like Intel's coming up with Nvidia, AMD's holding its ground at least. It's up a little bit from Friday, so we're definitely seeing them start to recover, and hopefully it just gets more accelerated so we see some bigger moves. Mike, I know you've been talking about Logitech a lot lately too. They're up quite a bit today as well, up 5.5%, and they had a pretty nice gap here on the chart.
Yeah, I think they got upgraded. Yeah, it looks like, I think Goldman, let's see, it says Goldman Sachs upgrades Logitech to buy from neutral, so I'll take it.
Yeah, that's big. I mean, that's huge. It pushed Logitech up 5%. They recovered up from those 2 bad red days on Friday, or on Thursday and Friday, I should say. So I'm glad to see us getting back up to that $76 area. That should be big, but I will say that is a little bit of resistance. We have seen some bounces around 76 over the past couple weeks, but looking at it, I'm glad to see Logitech recovering. And if we look at Logitech on the 1-year daily, Mike, this is another one that's still pretty low down here. And I know it's kind of in that same sector as Corsair. Like they make a lot of products like keyboards, mice, headsets, and stuff like that. And I'm using a Logitech mouse and keyboard right now.
Same. Same. I'm using a Logitech keyboard, mouse, webcam. What else? Probably some other things too. I think like a Wi-Fi booster.
Speakers.
Yeah, speakers. Yeah, but I also have like a Corsair computer. We both do. The Origin, owned by Corsair.
Yeah. The Corsair makes a lot of good computer parts, like the cases and everything like that. I know they even make like a lot of the fans and stuff like that go in there. So I know Corsair's pretty big. Let's see how they're doing today compared to Logitech. Hey, Corsair's doing pretty good. I mean, it's up 0.9%. It's not really doing much, but it's better than seeing it in the red. I will say I'm happy that Corsair is holding at $20, Mike, because whenever we had that dip down to 17 for a couple days, I was getting a little bit worried, but I'm glad to see us holding our ground and coming back up, kind of like Draftkings.
Yeah. Here we go. I also see Intel creeping up there, Tom. Let's see.
Yeah, let's see. 5-minute chart, INTC. Yeah, definitely coming back up today. It's up 1.5%. It's kind of following Nvidia, I feel like, back to the upside, but it's nothing explosive. But, once again, we'll take it. Any type of green movement back up, we'll obviously take out of our longer term plays. But looking at Intel on the daily chart, Mike, last week they dipped down in a pretty major way again. They were at 52.50, and we ended up ending the week all the way down at 47.50. So pretty big tumble there. Hopefully we get that recovery back.
Awesome. Yeah, when Intel was booming up, like, what was that, like a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, I thought that was time, Tom. Like, I thought that was going to be the start of a giant uptrend, and it still can be. I was just, it's just very rare to see Intel move the way that it did on March 24th. So it's on my watch list. It's kind of like a value play, but they're also in like an industry that's growing a lot.
Yeah, you remember that big news that day, right?
Well, I forgot. What was it?
So Nvidia's CEO actually said that Nvidia is looking to use Intel as a foundry for their chips, which is going to be huge. Like, if that would mean that Intel is going to be maybe getting a deal with Nvidia if that does end up going through. And then also Nvidia's CEO he's a pretty influential guy in the chip space. He ended up coming out and actually saying that he was pleased with everything Intel's been doing the past couple of years. So that was good to see. I know we haven't seen remarks from CEOs like that in a long time. Here, I actually am going to find it on the Thinkorswim news tab. But Intel also has some pretty big news today, Mike. Lockheed Martin and Intel are collaborating on a 5G communications thing for the U.S. military. Looks like it's something for like the Allied Defense System. So we'll have to see what happens, but they're going to try to advance 5G ready communication. So that's good to see that like now Lockheed and Intel are going to be working with the government. That's huge. But like I said, even those comments from Nvidia's CEO a couple weeks ago were huge for Intel. I'm really trying to find this news here. Let's see.
That's cool.
Let's see. Oh, here it is. Intel shares are trading higher on continued strength following yesterday's reports indicating Nvidia's CEO announced the company is interested in exploring Intel as a foundry. And then he also had some good statements about him too. But the main stuff was making them or using them as a foundry because, as we know, Nvidia has been killing it, Mike. So maybe they'll help Intel out here.
Yeah. All right. Good stuff. Yeah, that's pretty awesome. So I might have to scoop up some Intel shares or maybe short some puts on it. I know it's been at a pretty good level lately. I've been like meaning to enter this one. I keep putting it off, but we'll see.
It's a tough one, it sucks because we have stocks like AMD and we have stocks like Nvidia just straight up killing it. So it's hard to buy Intel down here at the bottom, but Intel's been around for a long time. They had a lot of hype in the past, so their hype phase is like over right now. So AMD and Nvidia are still kind of like in that hyped up phase. And as we know, those companies make graphics cards, which are big for the AI industry. So hopefully Intel starts to do a little bit better. And I know last week Intel even came out with their own Intel Arc graphics cards or like graphics chips. So maybe that'll be big for them too. But yeah, it's tough to buy them down here, Mike, because there's so many other stocks that will probably move at a higher percentage than Intel. But I feel like Intel's fairly safe. They've been around for a long time, and I just don't see them like falling off the table or anything like that. And the support's pretty good down here, like 43.
Yeah, awesome. Well, looking at some other plays today, for the most part, my watch list is green. There's a couple stocks in the red, but for the most part, it's pretty green. How about Neo, Tom? Because that one is kind of shifting higher by the minute.
It is actually. It kind of popped up this morning and broke above that high of last week. I would say if we could start to move above $24, Neo might have a pretty good run today, but I like this setup, Mike. It looks like it gapped up. We've consolidated around this support around $23. Looks like we came down, touched support, came right back up. So far today, it's holding its ground, and I'm glad to see it holding up after that nice gap, because as soon as the market opened, Mike, this stock was kind of turning over a little bit. So I'm happy to see it came back up, and it looks like it does have some renewed momentum here. I know Neo gapped up along with Baba. Another one is XPEV. I think XPEV's another pretty good EV company in the China sector, I should say. Not that it's going to be a good EV company forever, but lately it's had a lot of hype along with LI. LI actually had a pretty good move this morning, Mike. They broke out in a pretty good way.
Awesome. How's Rivian doing?
Oh, they're not doing too good, I don't think. Let's check it out. RIVN. Yeah, they're pulling back. They're in the red again. And I will say, Mike, Friday, Rivian pulled back so drastically that it really caught my eye. Rivian was down a ton. Lucid was down a ton too. Lucid's actually holding up a lot better today. They're in the green almost 2%, but poor Rivian here, Mike. They're still falling off the table, down 0.6% again. And looking at Rivian on the daily chart, it's rough. This poor company just can't form any good supports or anything like that. Maybe the support down here around $40 will hold up, but at this point, this stock's just hard to trade, Mike. I feel like getting it for the long term is the only way to go. Maybe you could get some leaps or something, but that IV is just crazy. I mean, it's not crazy compared to GameStop, but still you're looking at 117%, and the stock is so low right now. It's just, this one's a tough one.
Speaking of GameStop, how are GameStop and AMC doing?
Yeah, they're actually doing pretty bad again. They're pulling back. We have GameStop down 4%. I will say this daily setup on GameStop does not look the best. We had a kind of a failed breakout last week. GameStop tried to run up on April 1st or on April Fool's Day there, tried to run up and then pulled right back there whenever the market opened on Friday. I know GameStop had some pretty good news there, Mike, for a while, but pulled right back to the downside. Looks like AMC, I'm sure they're in the red too. Yeah, they're having a major pullback again, down 3.7%. Let's see that daily chart. Yeah, these daily charts are looking rough, Mike. They're just having some major pullbacks here. I will say though, they're still up above their support levels, which is good. AMC has that main level down here around $13 to $15. So at least we're still above there.
Yeah. All right, Tom. Well, I think we covered all of the major movers today. Do you have any final stocks you're watching before we close out of the stream?
Yeah, I'm still keeping Twitter on the radar here. They're still kind of running up. Let's check on CNBC one time. Maybe we'll see if anything crazy has came out over the past few minutes. Kind of looking at it, nothing too crazy. I will say though, guys, just still keep in mind that there's still some crazy stuff going on with the Ukraine situation. Russia is apparently facing more, or they're risking themselves of facing more sanctions. So it seems like JP Morgan CEO is talking about some stuff, says that the Ukraine war dramatically increased risks ahead for the U.S. So that's never good. I will say he always comes out. But Mike, look at this. I will say I saw DWAC was leading my watch list to the downside, down almost 10%. And look at this. 2 key tech executives quit Truth Social after the troubled launch. I know that this app, Mike, Truth Social or ticker DWAC, had a lot of hype for a while. And looking at it now, it looks like 2 big executives have left this, which is not good. And I will say, Mike, I downloaded Truth Social on my phone, and I've been on a waiting list for over a month right now to get into the app. At this point, I almost don't even want to go into it anymore because it's just the launch has been so bad. And I know that even Trump's been upset with the launch. So we'll have to see what happens. And then today we had Elon Musk talk about, or he obviously got that big stake in Twitter, and he talked about making his own social media company over the past couple weeks. So I feel like maybe Elon will do something bigger here. And honestly, I think this will be better overall because as we know, I think Elon's just a really good person for this. He has a lot of followers, and if you want to make a social media company blow up, I mean, what better guy to have than Elon on your team?
Right? Oh gosh. Yeah, Elon has his hands in like everything nowadays. Of course, Tesla with electric vehicles. Of course, he has a lot to do with like the solar industry. SpaceX. I know his Neuralink, the Boring Company, and I'm sure a lot of other things that I didn't even mention right now.
Yeah, the Boring Company. He even makes flamethrowers, Mike. Like, how more awesome can you get than flamethrowers? Like, come on.
Yeah, that's cool. But yeah, lots of crazy things are going on in the market in the world right now. And Tom, I'll say this, like when I woke up this morning, I was not expecting to see on my CNBC homepage, Elon Musk takes a 9% stake in Twitter, shares Soar. Like I would have never expected that, but yeah, I guess that's just the market sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. And just last week he was having making bad statements about Twitter. Remember, he was saying this is whenever the news came out about him making a new social media company. He was on I think he was on Twitter saying that Twitter didn't allow freedom of speech and that they pick and choose who they ban and stuff like that. So it's pretty cool to see him take a big stake. Who knows? Maybe he'll have some influence over it now. I know that those shareholders, like the top dogs, obviously sometimes can have a little bit of say. I wonder, like, if he's gonna get like a certain, like, I wonder how his voting rights are gonna be, Mike. Like, do you think he's gonna like have a little bit of like an influence over the board at all? Like, I'm curious to see how this is gonna play out.
Yeah, me too. Actually, I think there's a lot of different options on the table right now, but I'm excited to see how everything plays out because this is interesting. But overall, thank you guys so much for joining. Before we close out, I just want to personally thank every single one of you for joining. So thank you so much, Jimenez, George, Dang, Gada, Hunter, Michael, Kathy, Sean, Vicky, Lou, I am Mike Doe, Alex, and Carlos. Thank you guys so much for joining today's stream. We had a pretty awesome time. Thanks so much, Sam, for joining. Besides that, thank you guys so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.